Joe, let me ask you a couple of questions. Okay. 19 years old, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever been to a Holocaust memorial or anything that impactful?
I went to the 9/11 memorial my senior year.
If somebody were to go to something like a Holocaust memorial, would you have an issue with them taking pictures of it and posting it on social media, the memorial itself?
No.
Okay. Would you have an issue with them taking selfies or taking pictures of loved ones and posting it on social media?
No.
Okay. Mayor Pete Buttigieg is catching flack because there is, obviously, this is something that a lot of these Holocaust memorials around the world have asked people to stop taking selfies and these Instagram-like photos of them at these memorials. They've asked people to stop doing that. Well, Pete Buttigieg did the same thing. Some people have equated it to what looks like a fashion shoot. And he's not remorseful or anything like that. It's just kind of a picture of him there. And then it's kind of like made black and white and that sort of stuff. The photo is allegedly taken by Jason, his husband. So South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg is riding high on Iowa polls, but not even that could prevent him from being dragged on social media for a photo posted by his husband. Jason Buttigieg posted the photo, which shows the 2020 Democratic presidential candidate at the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin in April of 2017 during a trip to Germany. It was captioned simply, "This guy." Now, if you look at it, the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin has these columns and very narrow walkways. I don't know how many of you have seen this. And there's basically Buttigieg just there as a tourist looking back, and that's kind of it. He posted on Instagram. The two were married in June of 2018, just over a year after the photo was taken, which isn't relevant, but it's in the article anyway. The photo has been recirculating over the weekend after NBC reporter Ben Kesslin dug it up, and the social media response has been swift. So Ben Kesslin says, "Is this ... at the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin ... Now, what has basically happened is people are looking at this and they are not very thrilled about it. Now, again, I do think that sometimes people make too much of this, okay? But I will say that the Holocaust memorials themselves have repeatedly said, this is not where you come for your Instagram photos. So they have made it a point for the past several years to let people know, we'd really prefer it that you didn't do this, okay? Now, with that said, is there anything wrong with it? That's going to come from your own personal, point of view, all right? People are obviously going to have some issues with it. Some people are not going to have issues with it, but the Holocaust memorials themselves have not been very fond of this type of behavior. Now, some people have been disrespectful when they're taking these photos. Others have taken selfies like, yo, guys, totally hanging out at the Holocaust Memorial. So moving. Hashtag so moving, right? And then they post on Instagram. And so from the perspective of the memorials, their position is, all right, you're trying to get attention by being here instead of drawing attention to the memorial and why it's here. Okay, that's been their viewpoint. And so you've got this fashion shoot looking filtered photo of Pete Buttigieg basically looking back over his left shoulder at Chase and his now husband. And some people have pointed out that this just doesn't look good. It looks like this is more of a fashion shot, not a photo of somebody at the memorial, that sort of thing. Okay. Now, I'm going to leave the judgment of whether or not you believe this is inappropriate up to you. Okay. And if you want to call and tell me why, yes or no, I'm happy to take those phone calls at 574-25-95-95-3 right now. Who else do we have here? Tim Fitzsimmons. When Pete Buttigieg came out in 2015, this particular meme, gay men using photos taken at the admittedly visually dramatic Berlin Holocaust as their IG selfie Grindr profile pic, was at least 3 years old. And he's right. He's completely right. I've been covering this for a long time, that they have requested that people not do this. All right. Not everybody gets the memo. Okay. You would think that somebody on Twitter, as much as Pete Buttigieg was, that maybe that would have come across his desk, but he's too busy telling people that he carried an AR-15 over in Afghanistan. So anyway, what ended up happening is a lot of people now started posting these old photos of these Grindr profiles and some of the Instagram stuff that were used by people in their profile pic. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily fair. I get that some of them are trying to highlight his gayness, and some people are also trying to highlight that this has been an issue for a long time. Some people are pointing out that, look, this has been a thing in the gay community to do for a long time, too. And the message was out a long time ago that you don't do this anymore. Please don't do this anymore. So I will leave this up to you. I will post the photo, obviously, in the Daily Show Prep. If you want to take a look at it, I'll put it up on Facebook. We'll see if Facebook has restored the polling feature. I'll do a poll on whether or not it's inappropriate to take a photo like this at a Holocaust memorial. There's also a reasonable argument, I think, that needs to be made at the risk of sounding like I'm one of those okay boomer types, that people in younger generations, this is how they document their life. And people in older generations didn't document their life by taking a damn picture everywhere they went, okay? So there's going to be a generational gap there where people like to document, I was at this place. And so here's a picture of me at this place. And if I'm going to take a picture of me, it might as well look decent in the picture. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to document that I was there. Now, some people will say that you can document that you were there with just a normal photo, but photos oftentimes get stolen and become stock photography and that sort of thing, even if they're not officially stock photography. So a lot of times people will document themselves in these photos in order to prove that it was, in fact, my photo and that, yes, I, in fact, was there, okay? Which shouldn't be a thing, but actually denying that somebody was ever at a real place really is an internet thing, okay? So now, that's not the only scandal, and it's not the biggest scandal that he's dealing with. I'm going to save that one for after the break, but first, the Associated Press has another story about Pete Buttigieg. 3 stories about him that are bad this weekend. Buttigieg touts military service, wary of overstating role. Okay, Thomas Beaumont, where were you when Politico was basically writing articles about how he had PTSD because he had taken so much shell fire when in Afghanistan? Because that happened. We made fun of it. So where were you, Thomas Beaumont from the Associated Press? Who, by the way, edited the article about an hour ago. I don't know what he did to that. Let's see what the update is. Pete Buttigieg strides past an oversized photograph of himself dressed in fatigues, the Afghan horizon behind him as he enters a Des Moines arena for an Iowa Democratic Party gala. In his first Iowa television ad, he holds a rifle and points it toward the rubber at his feet, introducing himself as a veteran. Like candidates from the time of George Washington, the South Bend, Indiana mayor is leaning hard on his 7-month deployment as an intelligence officer in Afghanistan as a powerful credential. As he does, he walks a narrow path between giving his wartime service its due and overstating it. Welcome to the club, Associated Press. You are a couple of years too late. He is careful not... I'm sure that the Young Turks will probably break this news this week, and they will say that it's brand new. Okay? He is careful not to call himself a combat veteran, even as he notes the danger that he faced. Okay. That's new, though. Remember, he was basically promoted as a combat veteran, and there were articles about how it wasn't true, and people checked his military record and his ribbons to make sure that it wasn't true, and then said, isn't it interesting that he never tells anybody that he didn't see combat? So even though he's now kind of like, yeah, I'm not a combat veteran, for a long time leading up to this point in history, he didn't correct anybody who made the insinuation either, including the Political article that basically, when they were driving with him, remember, he hit a pothole or something like that, and they were like, oh, he had flashbacks to Afghanistan or whatever it was. I got to pull it up and give you the direct quote. But, I mean, I think I actually wet myself a little bit when I read it on air and laughed hysterically, because we know that he didn't take fire in Afghanistan or anywhere else that he went. One of his former competitors in the Democratic nomination, Representative Seth Moulton of Massachusetts, has drawn a sharp contrast between his 4 combat tours in Iraq and Buttigieg's service. And a former commanding officer, he said that he thinks Buttigieg would be within his rights to say that he is a combat veteran, nonetheless questioned the use of a rifle in his ads. As support, he's not a combat veteran, by the way. He didn't see fire, okay? I'm not denigrating his service, but you're not. Look, I'm a veteran too, not a combat veteran, okay? When you cross that line, when other people have taken fire, you're wrong. Really is that simple. Did I train people who took fire? Yep. Did people who learned some of the advanced shooting techniques that they were learning in the military in places where I was helping out. Did they take fire? Yep. Do I get to claim any of that? No, not at all. I hope that some of the stuff that we went over in our training helped them, and that's why they came home. But I don't get to take any credit for any of that. As support for his campaign grows, Buttigieg can expect more intense scrutiny of his military record in a political climate where military service is far from sacred, and has past attacks on the records of Republican John McCain and Democrat John Kerry show. Of course, the difference there is Democrat John Kerry claimed that he was a war criminal, and of course he was not. Buttigieg addressed the subject with reporters during a recent bus tour in northern Iowa. It kind of felt like combat when the rocket alarms went off, he said, but I don't feel prepared to use that term for myself, because you aren't. But again, welcome to the club, Associated Press. You're a couple of years too late. But this isn't even the biggest thing that he's dealing with over the weekend. The biggest thing that he's dealing with over the weekend is, once again, damage to the Buttigieg campaign among black voters as his campaign was caught lying about black support. We'll talk about that coming up on News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.